I'm here with Jeff Reichert. He is the writer and director of the new documentary Gerrymandering. And I just wanted to ask you, talk a little bit about what is the climate right now for political documentaries and issue-oriented documentaries?
Yeah, it's really hit or miss. It's really tough. I mean, you know, we're sitting here, and I think it's the weekend after Davis Guggenheim's Waiting for Superman opened, and the numbers on that film were really, really good. Catfish opened a few weeks ago, which is not an issue documentary, but it is, you know, we can sort of talk about documentaries as in a holistic sense in terms of the marketplace and how much they'll bear. That's also doing well. Actually, we're 2 weeks from those films. We're 1 week from the opening of Freakonomics, which didn't perform very well at all.
Right.
And so it's really it's a question about how much the marketplace will bear. You know, what people are interested in seeing. This Friday, Inside Job is opening in New York. How's that going to do? It remains to be seen. And Alex Gibney's Client 9, the Elliot Spitzer movie, is coming out in just a couple weeks. And so in that mix is my film as well. And so you know the question of is the marketplace oversaturated at this particular moment? You know, do people want to see things political? Are they tuned out of the politics of things? You know, you never know. And sometimes it's really case by case. You know, if all the reviews for Gerrymandering come out and they're kind of through the roof, it will drive people to the theaters. But if they're just sort of, well, this is something that's interesting, you know, they did a pretty good job with it, then, you know, we're not going to see much success at the box office, I don't think. But
And what are you doing to try to get this film out of the usual cities, like San Francisco, New York, LA? What about getting it, I mean, the Texas section of your film? Your mouth just dropped, especially seeing Tom DeLay again. But how are you planning to get it into Texas, maybe outside of Austin and Dallas?
Yeah, we're trying to we'll screen with anybody and for anybody just about who wants to. Because the goal is to have it seen in as many places as possible so everybody could know to be involved in the redistricting process. And so, you know, on the 12th of October, we're doing simultaneous screenings in 15 cities around the country. Some of them are in Oklahoma and Florida, and Vermont and Colorado. You know, it's a bunch of very weird cities that we put together for that, and it's great. It's a great spread. We're opening traditionally theatrically in New York and LA, San Francisco, San Diego on the 15th. But we've also, you know, we're sort of putting our money where our mouth is to a certain extent because you know, in California they have the Yes on 20 and No on 27 campaign, and they approached us about using the film as part of their campaign, and they said we'd like to send out 660,000 DVDs of the movie to registered voters, and a lot of those registered voters live in places where this movie would never ever have a chance to make it, and we said, you know what, interesting strategy. Let's give it a shot and see how it goes. And so far we're getting tons of feedback from people just in random places in California who received a movie that they hadn't heard of, read a little bit about it, watched it, and liked it, and said, well, you know, now I understand this issue better.
Good for you.
That was the goal.
And I often turn on the cable channels. It's almost like torture. You don't want to watch, but you have to. And the national media hardly ever address this issue. I mean, they talk about what's going on in D.C. every day. And a lot of the conversation is very shallow, but they hardly ever talk about gerrymandering. And at a time when the national media are missing so many important stories, documentarians are really stepping in to fill the void. So, I mean, there are so many great stories to tell right now. What advice would you give to aspiring documentarians?
I would say the one thing that I found, you know, as I was doing this, there was a way in which we could have gone and made this movie a lot earlier. And it would have involved me running around with a camera and a microphone and sticking in people's faces and trying to force some things to happen. But we didn't do that. We said, you know what, let's wait until we've got the money in place to make this movie. You know, the issue is urgent, but, you know, let's take a little bit of time and assemble a good team of people so that way we can make a really good movie. And that's advice I would give to almost any documentarian, because, you know, a lot of times you're working on an issue, you're very passionate about it, and you just want to go and start. But sometimes that isn't the best way to service that issue and the best way to advance the cause. Because sometimes if you spend some time thinking about it, I mean, I thought about this for 3 years before we shot any tape. And I think my feelings about redistricting changed a lot during that time. The movie I would have made in 2005 or 2006 is very different than the movie we ended up with. I'm very happy we ended up with the movie we made, because the movie from 2006 is a little bit naive. It's not as fully focused and fully formed. And that also gave us time to put together a really good crew of people, a great DP, a great editor, so that way all the technical credits work. Because you still have to remember that when you're asking people to come and see your movie, even though they may be buying that ticket because they're interested in the issue, I think you still have a responsibility to present the issue to them in a way that is pleasing and intriguing, and isn't assaultive and isn't low rent and poorly put together. You know, no matter how urgent your issue is, I think you do have a sort of responsibility to your audience to give them a good experience.
And how did your feelings change about gerrymandering over the years?
Well, they kind of deepened and became more complicated. It led me to to start thinking about beyond the questions of what are the best ways to draw districts, but also some of the things we put in the film towards the end, which sort of talk about, well, why do we have to have districts? Are there systems we can use beyond districts? And that gets you, the next step from there is you start thinking about, oh wait, democracy is something that isn't a fixed object. It isn't something you just have. It's a means to an end. It's not the end in itself. And so if it's a means to an end, that means you can do it in different kinds of ways. And I kind of realized that the way we do democracy here is a bit outmoded. And we could do democracy better. And a lot of people are doing democracy better. And I think if I'd made the movie in 2006, we would have talked specifically about redistricting. There would have been a lot of case studies, but some of those larger philosophical questions that speak to the as Lonnie Gunier says in the film, we need to have a revolution of the mind in this country. We wouldn't have started talking about the revolution of the mind that could lead us to an even better, more healthier democracy once we get past the redistricting thing.
Jeff Reichert is writer and director of the new documentary Gerrymandering, and he also worked on release campaigns for the excellent documentaries Enron, The Smartest Guys in the Room, No End in Sight, and Jesus Camp, all must-see documentaries. Jeff, congratulations again.
Hey, thanks very much.
And thanks so much.